Hello and welcome to the UK Domain. Today's webinar, in association with startups.co.uk, is how to build a great content plan for your business. My name is Peter Meinertzhagen. I am the head of content at Nominet. My role here is to lead the content marketing team and to lead on the content marketing strategy. So I hope I am in a good position to talk to you about how to develop a plan. Now I'm going to start with a question to you, in fact. I want to ask, how many of you have already got a content marketing plan or strategy in place? Just answer into chat if you can. Just yes or no. Do you have a content marketing plan or a content marketing strategy? The reason I want to ask this question while I wait for you to answer is that many people have started their content marketing approach without having necessarily started with their plan or their strategy yet. And it's absolutely essential that you begin with a strategy and you begin with your plan, because without that, how do you know you're being effective? How do you know if your content marketing is hitting the mark? I'll start the webinar, but please do answer that question as we go. Say yes, you do have a content marketing plan in place, or no, you don't. It'll be very interesting for me to know. So today we're going to be going through these 7 points. What content marketing is and isn't, and why is content marketing important for your business? What is the importance of having a very clear, well-defined strategy for your activity? What goals do you need to set yourself at the beginning of your activity to make sure that you're measuring what you need to and achieving what you need to? How do you research your target audience? And how do you really get to the root of what they need and what their struggles are? What kind of content should you be creating? There's so many types of content, so many formats available, it can be hard to know where to start. Once you've created your content, what should you be doing to promote it? What free channels, what paid channels should you be using? And finally, what and how should you be measuring your content marketing to know that it's being effective? And to make sure that if you're spending money on your content marketing, that you're putting your pounds to good use. Right, let's start with a definition of what content marketing is. I'm going to borrow a definition from the Content Marketing Institute. I would highly recommend their website with lots of good content marketing information. Their definition is as follows. Content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. Bit of a mouthful, but the idea here is that we're encompassing everything that content marketing is. So let me dissect this definition just a little bit. So first of all, it's strategic. Content marketing starts with a strategy. It's a strategic marketing approach. Content marketing is one of your marketing efforts. Yes, it does go into sales. Yes, it does go into customer service, but it's ultimately a marketing approach. It's about creating and distributing. Content marketing isn't just about creating, you need to distribute that. You need to get your content to a wider audience. Without that, it's very unlikely that anyone's ever going to see that content that you're creating. It needs to be valuable, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be consistent. You need to create content that your audience wants, and you need to be consistent with it. You need to be publishing content on a regular schedule. It's no good producing one piece of content and then leaving it 12 months. You need to have whatever regularity you wish, if that's once a week, once a month, once a day, but you need to be consistent. And the purpose of doing this is that you want to attract new customers and retain your customers. And it's really crucial, the final point, ultimately to drive profitable customer action. If we're talking about any marketing approach or any marketing strategy, the reason you do marketing is to get new customers and to retain your customers. So it's very important that you're keeping in mind profit, ROI. And that brings me very neatly onto some misconceptions around content marketing. By the way, if you've got any questions you'd like to ask them throughout. I'm happy to pause and answer a question. Otherwise, there will be time at the end and I'll answer your questions then. Content marketing misconceptions. Content marketing is blogging. Now, a lot of people, particularly small businesses, think if you're doing content marketing, you need a blog and you need to be writing blog posts. That's partly true, but the reason it's a misconception is that content marketing is so much more than blogging. And you can do content marketing with not without having a blog. You don't need a blog to do content marketing. A blog is just one tactic within your strategy. It may be relevant for you and it may not be relevant for you. But don't get the two things confused. Content marketing is only for SEO, search engine optimization. If you're not aware what SEO is the practice of getting your website to rank higher in search engines, predominantly Google. A lot of people think that content marketing is about writing words in order to rank well in Google. And again, there is an element of truth in that because content marketing is absolutely essential to getting your SEO right, but there's more to content marketing than SEO. The value of content marketing can't be measured. Again, there's this misconception that content marketing, you can't really put a pound sign on it, you can't measure the ROI of it. And while it's true that it can be difficult to attribute a direct monetary value to your content marketing, never for 1 minute think that you can't measure the value. If you can't measure the value of an activity, question if you should be doing it at all, for all types of marketing. The results of content marketing are instant. Content marketing takes time. You can't just suddenly go, I'm going to start content marketing and in a couple of weeks get lots of results from it. Like SEO, in fact, as a marketing approach, it takes time. You need to build it up. That's why you need to be thinking about content marketing as early as possible, because the earlier you start, the bigger your rewards are going to be and the earlier you'll get to your rewards. Content marketing really is a long-term approach. It's not a quick win. The benefits of this is that even though it does take a longer time to get those results will be bigger and they will pay off in a much larger degree. Creating content is the same as content marketing. Content marketing needs content. And if you need content, you need to create content. But that's only the first part of your job when you're doing content marketing. The biggest part, I would argue, is marketing that content. It's no good writing a blog post and go, right, we're done here. You need to promote it. You need to be putting it out on your social media. You need to be outreaching. You need to be doing various distribution activities. Without that, no one is going to find your content. So why even bother with content marketing? Well, for me, as someone who works in content marketing and someone who ever since has worked in marketing, content has been at the focus of everything I've done. Content marketing to me is not necessarily a separate tactic or strategy alongside all your other. It's not like you've got content marketing here, advertising here, events marketing here. To me, content marketing is marketing. Content should be at the heart of everything that you do in your marketing. So content marketing really embodies what marketing is. You can't market if you haven't got content. If you're doing an advert, what are you sending people towards? You're sending them towards content. If you're making a video promoting one of your products, you're making content. Everything that you do in your marketing is content. Running an event is content. So to me, understanding what content marketing is understanding how to market your business full stop. So you need a roadmap. You need to know how to get to where you're wanting to go. That's where a strategy comes in. Lots of people, whether those are small businesses or even bigger businesses, start their activity without ever developing a strategy or a plan. Now, you might get some progress. You're doing things and you're making things happen, but without a strategy, you've got no way of telling if you're going in the right direction. You know, it's like wandering off into the wilderness without a map to guide you. You may get somewhere, you may have travelled 100 miles, but where are you? If you were aiming to go east and you've gone west, well, how on earth are you going to get back on track? That's what your strategy is. It is a roadmap to where you're going. So it's absolutely essential that you start your strategy, have a vision, know where you're going to be in 1, 2, 3, 4 years' time. By looking ahead, you can have a really clear vision and you'll have direction with what you're doing. One of the things that you'll start with when you're developing a content marketing strategy is defining what your goals are. What is it you're trying to achieve? Now, here are a list of common goals for content marketing. You might be trying to build brand awareness. You know, you just want people to be aware of your brand, your target customers to be aware of your brand. You may be trying to engage your target audience. They may be aware of you, but you might want to get them generating some conversation. You may want them exploring your website and your products. You want to generate traffic to your website. Ultimately, content marketing, even though it encompasses offline channels, it is largely an online marketing approach, and your website is the hub of all your content. That's in the middle. Your content marketing should be driving people towards your website. You might be using content marketing to generate leads or to nurture your leads. So particularly if you're a B2B business, you need leads in order to generate sales, and content marketing is a really wonderful way of getting those leads. And in fact, in any B2B marketing strategy, usually a piece of content, whether that's a white paper or an ebook, is the primary way of generating leads. You may be wanting to increase your marketing ROI. Now, that's a really kind of wide scoped bullet there. You know, we're talking about marketing as a whole, but ultimately content marketing will help improve and enhance every aspect of your marketing. And finally, you might be using content marketing to retain your customers, to generate customer loyalty. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses forget about their current customers. Well, if you can keep your current customers coming back, that's more sales, and if you can keep them loyal, they will share the word about your business, and content is integral to letting that happen, allowing that to happen. And make sure that your content marketing goals are always linking back to your business goals. Typically, business goals fall into one of three camps. They're either sales goals, cost-saving goals, or business growth goals. A sales goal is the most simple, and that's going to apply to 90% of you. You want more sales. You're trying to drive revenue. That's what your content marketing is trying to do. You may also be trying to cut costs. Now, one really good example of this is customer service. Many businesses that offer a customer service phone line or email, web chat, they have advisors. A lot of the time, the amount of calls or requests can be reduced by having a very well-stocked FAQ or customer base, knowledge base. A lot of businesses that have significant call centers are learning that by having a very, very well-stocked customer knowledge base, you can reduce the amount of calls, cutting costs, creating savings. You're making it easier for the customer to find answers to the questions that they have. And you also might have business growth goals. And by business growth, I mean expanding your business and diversifying into new areas. You may be offering a brand new service. You may be offering a brand new product. You may be opening up a new office in a new location. You're trying to grow your business in that way. Content marketing can absolutely support that. So be really clear of what it is you want your content marketing to do for you. This chart shows you 4 areas that I always like to define not just my goals, but my entire strategy by. The first is reach. Reach is about reaching your customers, building brand awareness, and generating traffic to your website. The next stage is act. Okay, you've reached your customers, but now you want them to engage. You want them to act on your website and do things with your online presence, whether that's commenting on a social media post or reading a blog post. And then you want to convert them, ultimately. You want to take that audience that you've reached, engage them, and now you want them to ultimately perform a conversion, whether that's becoming a lead or buying a product from your website. And then finally, retention, the engage section. Once you've converted your customers, you want to keep them loyal and keep them coming back. So my advice to you is this: if you're coming up with objectives for your business and your content marketing strategy, fit them around this framework of reach, act, convert, and engage. If you do that, then you've thought about every part of your marketing properly. And this applies not just to your objectives, but also to every part of your marketing. So this lovely old sketch by Raphael represents customer personas, getting a sketch of your customer. At the heart of content marketing is your customer. And if you look at 2 different camps of marketing, on the one hand, you've got push marketing, which is where you're pushing your message on your customer or potential customer, whether or not they want to see it. This is traditional advertising, a TV advert. Often TV adverts go out to a mass market audience. You've got no idea if they're interested in your product, but you're pushing it out to as many people as possible, so it's push marketing. On the other hand, you've got pull marketing. Pull marketing is where customers are looking for something and you offer them your content at that moment. So for example, if I'm looking for a local business in Google, I might type in something like shoe shop Oxford. I'm looking for something. The results that appear in Google are giving answers to that question. That's what pull marketing is, and that's what content marketing predominantly is. It's a form of pull, and that makes it customer-centric, whereas push marketing is really all about the business rather than the customer. So you need to start with a customer persona and really think, who are they and what is it they need? Now, if you look up customer personas online, you'll see lots of information about give your customer a name, give them an age, what do they do, what's their family look like. If I'm perfectly honest, I think most of that information is completely irrelevant to your persona. What I recommend you include are these 6 bullet points. So what do they do? So what's their job? If you're a B2B business, what does your customer do? Are they the CEO? Are they the marketing officer? Or just what do they do generally if they're just your, a consumer customer? What are their goals? So what do they want to achieve? That could be anything. If we consider, you watching this webinar and your goals are, you want to learn how to improve your content marketing or how to construct a content marketing plan. That's your goal. What are their challenges? What things do they come up against? If I use you as an example, that challenge might be, there's so much information out there, how do I know where to go to get it? Or it might be, I haven't got enough time to develop a strategy. What's the easiest way of me doing that? So what are your customers' challenges? And what is it they're looking for ultimately? Are they looking for advice? Are they looking to buy something? Are they looking to talk to somebody about their problem? What are they looking for? You know what their goals are. You know what difficulties they're having. What is their solution in their head? Communication preferences. Now, not everyone likes to get information in the same way. Some people love to watch videos. Some people like to read 2,000-word articles. Some people like to receive emails on a Saturday because that's when they get time to read them. Think about how your customer likes to be receiving information and delivering it to them as personalized as you possibly can. And also quotes. So quotes is all about, if you get an opportunity to talk to your customers, whether they're current customers or talk to prospective customers, talk to them about those issues, their goals, their challenges, what they're looking for, and include those quotes within your personas. Bringing your customer to life as much as you can really helps when you're creating, because you can look back at it and remind yourself, really, what are they looking for and what makes them them? So once you've thought about your customers, you may be thinking, okay, I know what my goals are. I know who my customer is. What content should I be making? You've got such variety in terms of the content. But before you think about what content you're creating, you need to be thinking about, what do I want to say? What is it I'm trying to communicate? And this is where I recommend you look at a typical buyer journey. Typically, buyer journeys go through a number of stages. From a very simple level, I've represented them as 4. Awareness, consideration, decision, and retention. Awareness is where your customer is becoming aware of a problem for the first time. They may, if I use you as an example, it might be the case that you're becoming aware that content marketing is a trend in the marketing world, and you want to increase sales for your website, for example, and you're becoming aware of an issue, and you're becoming aware of content marketing as an approach. The next step is consideration, where you know there's a problem and you're starting to explore the options. From a sales e-commerce point of view, for example, you may be looking for a new pair of shoes, and you're looking at all the various shops available to you in your vicinity. You're considering the options that are available to you. Once you've considered your options, you're actually ready to make a decision. You're ready to buy something. That's the decision stage. Finally is retention. You've bought something and you may come back to that supplier or that shop because you need further things or you need to improve what you bought before. The reason this is essential when thinking about formats is forget the format for the beginning, think about what you need to influence the customer at each of those stages. What would the customer need to see at the awareness stage? If they land on your website after becoming aware, what kind of content do they need to see to consider you? It might be the case that they land on your service page and you're outlining on your service page, this is what my service does and this is how it fixes your problem. When it comes to decision making, a lot of people want to see social proof, they want to see testimonials, they want to know what your pricing structure is. So you've got different types of content for different parts of the buyer journey. And finally, retention. Well, think about your current customers. What's going to keep them coming back? What sorts of things are they going to need? If someone is signed up to a piece of software, well, they're going to want to have tips and advice on how to make the most of that software they've just bought. So think about what kind of content needs to fit in each of those stages. Once you've done that, you can think about what format is the most appropriate. If you're trying to get across a very difficult concept, let's say you've got a piece of software and you need to get across a very difficult step in using that software, what would they need to look at to make it easy? Would an instruction manual be the best way? Would watching a 10-minute video tutorial be the best way? Think about what would your customer like to see in order to get an answer to that question. That's when you can start thinking about your options. Here are just some of the common options. You've got blog posts, FAQs, videos, photography, infographics, ebooks, webinars, events. All of these you might end up using. You just need to think about what would your customer like to see. Blogs, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, is what most people think of with their content marketing. Blogs is very much about thought leadership. You're blogging as a person in your niche and you want people to be aware that you're an expert in your niche. FAQs, I love FAQs. The reason I love FAQs is because when people go to Google, they usually type a question. They'll ask a question into Google, and that's increasing more and more because people are talking to their phones and their Alexas and everything else. So people are talking conversationally and they're usually asking it as a question. If you can write content that answers questions, you can be found very easily in Google search. So FAQs are brilliant for SEO, and they're also just great for answering questions when people are on your website. I'm really a big advocate of FAQs, particularly for time-pressed small businesses. If you do nothing else, just write some FAQs. Videos, most people find videos more engaging than written content. So look to explore how you create videos. You don't need an expensive production company to do that. Sometimes all you need is your phone. So think about how could you use videos, whether that's a product showcase or whether it's a video introducing your business. Photography. If you are a business where photography, you're a very visual business, let's say you're a food business, you run a cafe, well, show pictures of what you're offering, really bring it to life. Most people prefer to see things than they do to read about them. Infographics, there was a big trend for making infographics, a number of years ago, and infographics are still useful. If you've got a complicated concept and you've got complicated data to get across in a simple way, infographics are a nice way of doing that. They were overused, certainly. People were making infographics about everything. But if you've got data and you've got complex information, usually an infographic is one of the easiest ways of digesting that information. Ebooks are particularly good for B2B. If you've got a big, meaty subject you can write about and be an expert in, write it as an ebook and put it behind a form. People fill in that form and you've got their email address, and now they've become a lead. And now you can market to them over a long time period. Webinars. We at the UK Domain and at Nominet do a number of webinars. Webinars are great because they allow you to talk to your audience in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. People like webinars because also they get a chance not just to watch a video, but to ask questions. When you're watching a video online, you might leave a comment and someone may get back to you in a couple of days, but a webinar you can get an answer directly. And finally, events. So people forget that events are a form of content. Lots of businesses, publishing businesses exist. They create content in order to get people to an event. Now, that doesn't mean you have to run a conference. It might, if you run a shop, for example, you might have an evening event where you showcase a product, or you may get people just coming in to mingle in your shop. There are many things that you can do, and the great thing about events is that they're memorable and you get to actually talk to people face to face. Now, this slide is all about once you've created your content, you've thought about what kind of content you need at the different buyer stages, and you've decided what formats you're going to use, well, you're going to need to promote it. I like to think about promotion in 3 groups: paid media, owned media, and earned media. Quite simply, paid media is where you're paying to promote your content. That's predominantly advertising. That might be Google AdWords, that might be social media promotions, that might be paying Instagram influencers to promote your products. Paid media is where you're paying for the privilege of being seen. Owned media is where you own where you're posting that advertising or message. Your website, a blog if you've got a separate blog, your social media channels. Owned media is where you're in control of it. Earned media is where your activities have earned something. So for example, that might be press coverage in a newspaper. That might be shares and mentions on social media. You don't own those and you haven't paid for those, but you've earned those through your activity. And there are things that kind of overlap. So for example, in the overlap between earned and owned media, you have SEO. So you don't pay for SEO, it's not paid media. And you don't own it because it's at the whim of Google, really, whether or not you appear in search engines. But you have earned it. So there's lots of overlap there. Now, if you're looking at these media channels and you're thinking, what channels should you be using? My recommendation, well, it all depends on your budget as well and how much money you're able to invest. Paid media is fantastic for short-term results. And particularly if you're starting from very little or starting from a small audience, paid media allows you to reach an audience quickly and immediately. Just bear in mind when you're paying for your media and you're using advertising, always be thinking about what return you're getting. Owned media is the bread and butter of your content marketing, your website and your social media channels. That's where you're posting your content. Just bear in mind that owned media alone won't reach an audience. You need earned and paid media in order to reach them. Earned media, if it's PR, you might be doing your own PR outreach, contacting newspapers, or you may be working with a PR agency. Earned media can be fantastic, particularly actually for SEO, because if you're doing PR activity and newspapers are linking to your website, those links improve your SEO, they make you rank higher. So there's lots of crossover between all of these different media types. And sharing, again, is brilliant. It's a form of word-of-mouth advertising. People trust products, businesses that their friends and family have recommended, and that's kind of what sharing is. It's a recommendation. So my advice really is to create content on your own channels, social media and a website. Do explore paid media channels in order to promote your content, particularly in the short term where you're starting from nothing or starting from very little, but really also focus on your SEO. SEO is a long-term strategy, but it's the one that typically delivers the best results. SEO is a really big subject and I can't cover every aspect of it in this webinar. On our website, there'll be a link at the end. We have many guides about SEO. But content marketing and SEO go hand in hand. And making sure that you're trying to drive engagement, outreach to bloggers, outreach to the press. Make sure that when you're posting things on social media, you're trying to generate conversation, because that earned media goes a very, very long way. Finally, is what you should be measuring. At the heart of a good strategy is your vision and your approach and your objectives. But also, what are you going to measure to ensure that you're being effective? If you're not measuring anything, how do you know you're being effective? I showed you at the beginning this framework: reach, act, convert, and engage. In the same way that I like to structure my objectives by these areas, I also like to structure my KPIs. If you haven't heard that term, it just means key performance indicator. They are the things that you're measuring to know if you're working, basically. I've included, now there are many different types of KPIs you can include. These are the ones that I think are the most common, and you absolutely should be measuring these. Within reach, you're going to be measuring impressions from a brand awareness point of view, and sessions, that's visits to your website. Once you've got those impressions and those sessions, you hope they visit your website. You want to be measuring the bounce rate, how many people land on your website and then go without seeing anything else. How much time are they spending on a particular page, or how much time are they spending on your website in total? One caveat to that KPI, if you've got a very high bounce rate, your average time on website and average time on page will be an inaccurate number, something to bear in mind. And I also should say, all of these numbers you can get from Google Analytics. And we have a webinar about measuring and particularly about Google Analytics coming up, and I'll link to that afterwards. Also, newsletter signups. If you're producing content on a regular basis and you've got a lot to share with your audience, you may want to consider having an email newsletter. Getting someone to sign up to an email newsletter is brilliant for marketing, because once you've got their email address, you can engage them over a long time period. And people, despite what you may think, do still read emails. And even in a GDPR age, most of you will probably have heard of GDPR and perhaps even been worried about it at some point in the past. If people are signing up, they're consenting to receive your newsletter and therefore your marketing, you're okay. Convert. So depending on the type of business, a conversion may be different to you. That might be leads, people filling in a form to get an ebook or get your newsletter, or that might be actually people buying a product. And finally, when you're measuring engagement over a long time period, common things you may be looking at are returning users or returning sessions, how many people come back to your website, in other words. And if you're doing email marketing, how many people are opening your emails? How many people are clicking through to come back to your website? Email engagement over a long time frame is a brilliant way of knowing how well your kind of retention strategy is working. So that encompasses everything I hope you need to know about doing your content marketing plan. We have another webinar coming up on the 5th of September, delivered by one of my colleagues, about how to measure your website's performance. If you were interested by the stuff I was talking about in terms of KPIs and how to measure what you're doing, that is essential. Keep an eye on our Twitter channel, which is @.uk, where we'll be promoting the details of that webinar now and in the future. And if you'd like to sign up to our newsletter, we send a monthly newsletter with updates of all the content, articles, videos, ebooks that we're producing. And you can get to our newsletter by going to the ukdomain.uk/subscribe, and you can sign up there. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to questions. So if you've got any questions, this is your time to ask them about any aspect of what I've spoken about in terms of content marketing. And while you're doing that, what I will mention as well, if you go to our website, the ukdomain.uk, and go to our YouTube channel, you'll notice that we run a campaign called Ask the UK Domain. We love answering questions from people because that way we know we're being as helpful as we can be. We publish monthly videos answering your questions, and if you have a question after the webinar, you can ask it on social media using Twitter, using the hashtag AskTheUKDomain, and we will turn your question into a video. Okay, right, fantastic. Lots of good questions here. So I'll start with the most recent one. I'm a new business. How do I plan to gain new customers as I haven't got an existing customer base? That's a really good question, and it's difficult when you're starting content marketing because if you haven't got an audience, who are you promoting your content to? Now, what I'd recommend in that situation is that you use paid media. If I go back to my slide about paid, earned and owned media, paid media channels allow you to get to an audience quite quickly. So, you could be using pay-per-click, display advertising, retargeting, social media advertising. That's a really good way of getting to an audience base quickly. And AdWords, Google AdWords, which is a PPC advertising, so you know when you do a Google search and there's adverts at the top of the page, typically that's one of the most effective ways of advertising your business. You get the best return. Can we have the slides? What we're going to be doing after this, in about a week's time, is that we're going to be publishing a video of this webinar, which will have the slides in there. So if you need to go back and have a look at the slides, go to the UK Domains YouTube channel and you'll find our slides there. Okay, I loved the overview. As a new starter board, the information given was reassuring. Thank you, Sharon. I'm glad that was helpful. I have a question more on the cookie part. Does any website need cookie privacy even if the website doesn't store user information? That's a really, really good question, and it's a very good question in light of GDPR. So you may think that your website is not storing any information. For example, you may not offer an email capture form. You may not offer a newsletter form. You may not have a checkout. However, if you are wanting to measure the performance of your website, you almost certainly will be having Google Analytics. And if you don't, you 100% should. Google Analytics works by placing a cookie on your user's computer. So if you're measuring performance of your website using a tool like Google Analytics, you will have cookies. So the answer is pretty much universally, yes, you need a cookie policy. If you are collecting email addresses or collecting any kind of user information, then you also need a privacy policy, which you might combine your privacy and your cookie policy together, or you may keep them separate like we do in the UK domain website. But the answer is yes, you absolutely do need a cookie policy. I have a question about the volume of content. How much content should I produce? Is it effective if one article and market it for 1 month? That's a really, really good question. The answer, there isn't just one answer because it does depend on your business, what products you're offering, what kind of customers you have. What I would say is that focus on quality over quantity. Don't feel that you need to be churning out content, particularly quick, low quality content, because that's not really going to help you. If you've produced one really, really comprehensive article answering a big question and it's really, really valuable, absolutely yes, that one article could be enough to keep you going for a month. Just bear in mind how you're promoting this. If you're promoting it on your own social media channels, people are going to get pretty tired very quickly if all you're doing is sharing one article over and over and over again. If you're using paid media and you're advertising that article and it's going out to a different wide audience over the course of a month, that could be very effective. So yes, you need to mix up and keep your messaging and your communications fresh, but don't feel like you need to be publishing an article every day. If you've got something very good, make the most of it. Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, no questions, but I like the term paid, owned and earned media. Yeah, it's a really nice way of just thinking about the channels that you're using to promote. And this applies not just for content marketing, but for all your marketing. And actually, yeah, going back to the original question I asked, interestingly, half of you said you do have a content marketing strategy and half of you said you don't. That 50-50 split, I wish it was 50-50. Actually, most people tend not to have a content marketing strategy. Okay, we've got some questions from Laura here. How much money should I spend on my content marketing? Again, there is no one answer fits all answer to this question. First of all, you need to be looking at, well, how much money does your product or your service generate? Because you should be looking at ROI. So for example, if you're offering a product that costs £15 compared to a product that costs £1,000, the amount of money that you can spend per click or per user is going to be very, very different. Lots of businesses will start off with paid media, advertising, putting money into it in the short term, and as time goes on and as their organic growth continues, which could be organic search sessions from Google, that could be growing a social media audience. You may decrease the amount you spend over time. So what I would say in terms of how much you should spend, just be looking at what your return is and how much your product costs. Make sure that you're never spending over and beyond what you're making. So sorry, that's a bit of a vague answer. It does really depend on what kind of products you're offering and how much money you're making from your products. Okay. If I just go back to Sharon's overview, you've said for types of media, which one would you start with first to support the website? So own media is a given because you're going to be posting content to your social media channels, you can be posting content to your website. What I would recommend when you're first starting out is do invest in paid media, because paid media gives you short-term results. And when you have very little customer base or very little audience at the beginning, paid media lets you reach them quickly. But as I said in answer to Laura's question, think about the return. Think about how much money your product is making and weigh that up. So yes, absolutely do use paid media. And if you only do one type of paid media, look at PPC advertising because it has the best ROI. Looking at Rob's question, can you give more information on what a typical roadmap should look like? Is it a case of setting measurable goals such as the ones mentioned? For example, setting website goals for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Great webinar, by the way. Thanks, Rob. Well, in answer to your question around what a roadmap should look like, that's a really, really good question because, should you be setting targets for yourself on a 3-month period, 6 month, 12 month? How far ahead do you look? If you're just starting out, it may take a while to get results. If you set yourself quite a lofty objective for your first 3 months, you may be a bit disappointed because you may not get there in time. What I'd recommend, and what we do for the UK Domain website, we set, first of all, a yearly target. So we have targets for things around how many visits we get from Google and how many emails we generate for our newsletter. Set a yearly target because that is a really good amount of time to say, well, look, we've done a lot of activity over the course of a year. Is this working or is it not working? However, depending on the volume of visits that you're getting to your website, if you're getting thousands and thousands of people and you're getting quite a lot of engagement, then the objectives you set will have a shorter time frame. You may have a long-term 12-month objective, but if you're getting lots of visitors, you may actually find it beneficial to set a 3-month objective because you're able to change things quite quickly. I'm saying for the majority of people, 12 months is a very good time frame. All I would say as a caveat, don't just do one thing and stick to it for 12 months and then measure it. You may set a 12-month objective, but check in on your KPIs and what you're measuring much, much more regularly every month. The reason for this is that you may start doing an activity, 2 months in, you think, well, actually that activity is not working as well as it could do, and you may change your tactics and your approach. If you left it 12 months, so you may have spent quite a lot of time and money on an activity that wasn't working. So set yourself a 12-month objective, but measure on a much more regular basis. I would recommend every month. Just going back through the questions. Someone asked, is there a replay? Yes, we'll be posting this video onto YouTube. Just go to the ukdomain.uk and there's a link to our YouTube in the footer. We have a few questions from Laura. How can I get started with creating a new piece of content? Great question. I'll take you back to the buyer journey. Look at the buyer journey. Have you got content that fulfills every stage of the buyer's journey? Have you got content for awareness, consideration, decision, retention? Start there. If there's one of those stages that seems underfulfilled, create content for it. When it comes to generating ideas and coming up with, actually thinking about what you're going to write or produce, Look at your competitors. It doesn't matter if you adopt a similar approach to some of your competitors, because actually competitor analysis is one of the best ways of coming out with new ideas. Look at what other people are doing. If you can, have a look at if it's being effective. You know, is it a good piece of content? Are they getting shares on social media? That sort of thing. So look at your competitors, look at your buyer journey, and start from there. But I recommend always start with the buyer journey. Have your customer in mind. That's where you should start when you're creating a new piece of content. What social media channels are the most effective? This depends on what kind of business you are. LinkedIn is great for B2B. So if you're a B2B business, absolutely be posting your content on LinkedIn. If you're not a B2B business, the very minimum is that you should have a company profile on LinkedIn so that people can find you. Twitter is still a good channel. The problem with Twitter is that it's very time intensive. You can't just post one tweet a day and hope people see it. You know, a Twitter feed, typically the average person follows hundreds if not thousands of people on Twitter. Your one tweet a day is going to get lost if they're following 1,000 people tweeting 10, 20, 30 times a day. So have a Twitter profile, post to it regularly, but if it's really taking up too much time, you're much better off sticking to LinkedIn and Facebook actually. So Facebook's an interesting channel. Facebook, particularly in recent months with some of the controversy around privacy, Facebook is changing what people see in its feed. Now this has been happening for a long time. People have been seeing businesses in their Facebook feed less and less and less over time. This is increasing, and Facebook is trying to win the goodwill of its user base, and it's actually going to show businesses in the feed even less over time. This doesn't mean you should neglect Facebook. You absolutely should have a Facebook page, and if you're producing anything new, put it on Facebook. The problem is that from an organic, free point of view, you may have very limited visibility. So you may want to explore using Facebook advertising. Don't feel like the lack of visibility is pushing you into paying for advertising. Again, evaluate every paid activity by how much return you're getting. So really the big three, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're producing videos, having a YouTube channel is an absolute no-brainer. Have a YouTube channel. There are others such as Pinterest and Instagram. Instagram can be absolutely fantastic if you're a business with visuals to share. You know, if you run a shop and you're showing pictures of your products, if you run a food establishment and you're showing pictures of your food, Instagram is fantastic when you've got the visuals to share. Same goes for Pinterest. You need to be a very visual business for those platforms to work. We've had a question from Jacqueline. Can we get paid professionals to help us build content marketing? Yes, there are many agencies, freelancers, and people out there who will help you with content marketing. I can't give you any recommendations, but if you go to Google, ask around, there are many people who can help you with content marketing. I'll answer the last question, which is how much time should I be spending on my content marketing? Now, it all depends on what your function within your business is. If you're the owner of this business, you're probably quite pressed for time. It's hard to give a definite answer to this, and it's difficult because what other kind of marketing activities are you doing? I'd recommend you spend at least a few hours a week on your content marketing. And that could be as little as writing new questions for your FAQ section and then posting those onto social media. If you've got other people within your business who can help, the more time you can invest into your content marketing, the more effective it's going to be. I guess my recommendation is, if you can spare just a little bit, a few hours a week, but keep investing more and more time as your business becomes more successful. And if you're in a position where you can hire a marketing person, like a marketing assistant, get them focused on content marketing full time. Content marketing is at the heart of all of your marketing activity. And if you've got a marketing person, get them doing content marketing. So I'm going to wrap up the webinar there. I'll take you back to our slide with our newsletter sign-up form on it. As a reminder, 5th of September, we're going to be doing another webinar around how to measure your website's performance. Go to our Twitter channel @.uk and you can find more information about that webinar and all the other content that we're producing. If you want to get answers to other questions, go to our YouTube channel. We post every single week and every month new answers to your questions. But thank you all for joining. I hope that was useful, and I hope to see you at a webinar again in the future.